So it turns out that I owe an apology to all 30 of you. And the apology is because I missed posting an episode last week, but I have good reason for why that happened. I have two excuses and then one truth. My two excuses. Number one, I actually had two podcasts ready to go in the can on my work laptop. And then I got an email early that week that said we detected some sort of data transfer, and they made me delete everything immediately. So I deleted everything without thinking before I got a chance to get it to my home computer, and I lost two episodes. They weren't that good, so I was sparing you anyways. And then the second reason, it's kind of like 1A and 1B. So 1A is I had to delete everything. 1B is when I can find time in my workday, I had everything on my work laptop so I could do some edits on there. And of course, having deleted everything, it's harder for me to get around to editing when I can't do it at work. So I got to kind of rearrange things, make sure I carve out a specific amount of time at home like this, carve out a specific amount of time at home so I can make sure I'm cranking out these episodes for all 30 of you, because we're a family and families don't lie. So the things I just said, those are true, but the real reason why I missed is, frankly, I didn't really want to do one. I didn't want to. It's this weird thing where, so back in the day, I had this old timer. His name was Jim. He's dead now, but he said something very wise to me. You know those just hard-hitting quotes that somebody will say to you that you just kind of stick with you for a long, long time. Well, Jim said this to me, R.I.P. Jim. He says to me, the longest trip you'll ever take is from your head to your heart. And that applies to so many areas of my life. It's crazy. How it applies to this podcast is, I got to be honest, a lot of times I don't want to do it at all. And it's all in my head, and I know that, but I had this constant battle where my head says, what's the point? Nobody's fucking listening. Oh, I wasn't supposed to curse in the first 5 minutes. Nobody's listening. You just have all these videos out in the YouTube space. How embarrassing, nobody's watching. And there's probably some merit to that. As with a lot of things, there's the head and the heart. And then my heart says, if I enjoy doing it, who cares? And I guess I have extra reason for doing it now, because now that I do this as like my job, it helps. It helps me flush out, being able to talk, pace out my speech on camera, keep things in my mind that I want to talk about. And sure, when I do it at work, it's a back and forth conversation. And a lot of these Skunk Box shits have been solo shits, because I just don't, that's another part of it. It's this, like, I've asked pretty much everyone who I want to ask to come on this podcast. Some people come on, some people don't really like it. It's not their thing. And so I'm just like, well, why not just do hour-long episodes by myself? Because I like to do it. So that's what my heart says. And then my head says all the other things. What's the point? It's not even good. But then I go to a meeting yesterday, and, where it's the meeting before the meeting, and I share, like, so this old timer his name's Rick. He was like, what do you do? What's your job? I go, I'm a project coordinator for prototype, whatever. And then we went on to talk about it. I'm like, yeah, it's actually pretty cool. They let me do a podcast for my job. And after we got done sharing, he pulls me aside. He goes, I could see how you could do a podcast. What did he say? He said something so kind, and it was just one of those compliments that, it kind of lifted my chin a little bit, shoulders back, chin up for the rest of the day. And Nah, not the rest of the day. A good 30 minutes. I felt good. He said, you speak so fluently and clearly and, you know, bing, 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 bing. And I said, well, easy, fella. Let's not get racial about this. Thank you for the compliment, but why don't you take your Fox News, Rich, and go elsewhere? Rich, hey, Chris, Rick, I have an aunt who, since I was so young, my brother Rick and I, we would go to like a family gathering, and she always greeted us the same way. She'd always go, "Oh, hey, Rick, Chris," or "Hey, Chris, Rick." So, in a certain circle of my friends, more so my brother's friends, my name's not Chris. My name is Chris, Rick. Hey, Rick, Chris. Oh, hey, Chris, Rick, Chris. You know, it's very funny. Very funny. To me, it's funny, so I shared it. I don't know if you, the listener, thought it was funny. I'm feeling kind of silly, though, which is cool. This is a good mindset to podcast in. The two that got deleted, I was not in a podcast mindset. Now I'm in a podcast mindset, and I could talk about some cool stuff. Speaking of things that I think are funny that, may not. So back when I worked for Rocket Mortgage, they would have these quarterly meetings, these big rah-rah, you guys are doing great meetings. And the meetings were so over the top and tacky. And they would have themes to them. It's like, who needs a theme for a meeting? All it was would just be like, look at our record numbers for this quarter. And it would just be a bunch of VPs and Ps and CEOs talking on a stage, and we would just be like, whatever. It was just a big JO sesh, and we would just go. And the reason I look forward to them is because it was 30 minutes to an hour off the phones or off whatever job I was doing, chats or emails. Man, any kind of break from taking phone calls all day was so welcome. Whew, that was a rough one. That was a rough job. It was really, really hard. But anyways, back to the meeting. There was a handful of us that got pulled aside before the meeting, and they were like, do you want to ask a question to Mike Malloy? And Mike Malloy was like our chief people officer, whatever that means. I think like top dog of HR, maybe, who a normal company would call that HR, human resources, the group of people who you go to when you need to go on like leave of absence, or, have a question about benefits, time off, whatever. Human resources. He was the chief people officer. And, speaking of, I don't want to get too off topic, but for a company that got so up their own beehole with not offending anybody and removing so many words from the vocabulary of all of its people, including you guys. You can't address a group of people as you guys. They certainly didn't remove the word chief out of a lot of their titles. Hey guys, what's with the proper use of language now? Chief executive officer, chief people officer. Are you Native American? No. Your people just robbed the land. Anyways, Mike Malloy, chief people officer. They asked me, do you want to ask him a question? And I was like, sure. I mean, like, and what that meant, and I knew this beforehand, is I would get a chance to have a microphone in my hand. And I like the idea of having a microphone in my hand. And I was like, yeah, sure. So they let me choose between like 5 index cards. These questions were predetermined, by the way. And they go, okay, which one do you want to ask? And I'm like, I'll ask this one. What do you think is our best foot forward into this new technology era of the mortgage industry? Blah, blah, blah. So we're in this meeting. I get my card, and Mike Malloy comes on stage. And you remember how I said a lot of their big hoorah meetings had a theme to them? Well, the theme to this hoorah meeting was summer camp. We had a summer camp theme, and I think what that meant was like they had all these snacks and they were like summer camp theme, like hot dogs on a toothpick or s'mores or apple juice or things like that. And Mike Malloy goes on stage and he goes, before I talk about what I wanted to get into, I would like to share a funny story from my childhood when I went to summer camp. And he shares this story. I can't remember for the life of me a single detail of this just god-awful story. But, after the chief people officer shares their story, people go, oh my gosh, he is so funny. How did we get such a funny guy as a chief people officer? We are so cool and hip. And we got Mike Malloy, and he is so funny to share that camp story. So then come the questions, and they go, who wants to ask a question? As if they don't already have the people predetermined. So a bunch of people are raising their hand. And so I raise my hand, and it comes to me. And keep in mind, there's maybe 400 people in this room. I'm really bad with numbers. There could have been 100. There could have been 2,000. So we'll just say 400 people in this room. And all of the top, like director, like, so they have a ton of middle management. So there's like you, your leader, your director, your VP, and then like 6 other things. And between director and the 6 other things, they were all on stage. And I have to preface that they were all on stage and I could see them all. I was fairly close to the front. Anyways, it gets to me. And I said, yeah, I have a question, but before I ask my question, I actually have a pretty cool summer camp story. And I kind of look, at the people who are sitting in the seats like me, the cheap seats. And I go, can I share my story? And people are like, yeah, sure. And I look up, and this was not by the script. They did not plan for this up at the executive level on the stage there. So I go, well, it's a little hard for me to talk about, but I feel comfortable. And when I was a kid, I was pretty overweight. And I look around the room, and I start to see some smirks. And then I go, I was pretty overweight. And one summer, my parents thought it would be a good idea to go to a summer camp to lose some weight. And then now people are starting to grin. They go, no way is he about to do it. I go, and with all the resistance in the world, I eventually caved and said, okay, I'll go. So I went, and you know what? At first, it was a blast. I was promised I would get to ride some go-karts, have some fun. And then what I found there is like all my friends like had these different ways of sneaking in like chocolate treats and candy snacks. And one guy even had like a briefcase with all the snacks. And it was so much fun until this crazy camp counselor came in to shoot an infomercial, and my life was never the same again. And we, he was very, very mean. And I think I suffered some PTSD from it. And I just went on and on and on. And then it was the best feeling. Have you ever made a large group of between 50 and 2,000 people like laugh really, really hard? To me, there's no better feeling. I will make a group of people laugh over having sex, I think. Yes, the feeling of making a huge group of people laugh is so good. And I turn to everybody, and like people like, oh my God, it was so cool. And I go, I'm so glad you guys have seen the movie Heavyweights. And then they just erupted, and I look on stage, and there's not a single smile on that stage. They were so mad because I think Mike Malloy thought I was making fun of him, and he was right. I was big time. And that was such a good way to make fun of him, because if I were to go head on and be like, Mike, I thought your story was kind of bullshit and it wasted my time, that would have probably, I would have probably gotten in trouble. But the fact that I was just doing what he did, I just shared my story, and they can't prove that that didn't actually happen. And I did look, so my director, his name was Brian, he actually did have a smile on his face. So I'm so glad I got like one of them to smirk. And man, that was top 10 best moments of my life. And one of the top 10 worst moments of my life is when I was wearing this shirt that I'm wearing right now. And if you're watching on video, you can see it. If you're just listening, I can describe it. It is a black t-shirt. On the front, it says Austin 316. And on the back, there's a smoking skull. And of course, I wear this shirt to represent for the greatest pro wrestler of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And this is actually my second rendition of this shirt. I had one back in 2013 or whatever. I bought it off Amazon, whatever. And I would sometimes wear it out. I was living in California at the time. I thought, okay, huge pop culture icon. People will get the reference. It's pretty cool. Not too many Stone Cold Steve Austin haters out there. So I'm wearing it one time. I'm out. I feel pretty good. And then this guy comes up to me and he goes, "Hey man, cool shirt." And I give him the grin. And this is like one of the first times I took it out for a spin. And I go, "Thanks, man." And then he said this to me. He said, "Is your name Austin?" And I said, fuck. This guy thinks that I had a shirt made and my name is Austin, and on the shirt it says Austin 316. Like, I physically went to the store and I'm like, "Hey, can you put my name on this? And like, what's a really good Bible verse? Oh yeah, John 3:16. Do my name in 3:16." And ever since that day, I never wore that shirt in public again. With the exception of going to a wrestling event, which has been a number of times. So when I go to a wrestling event, I do rock the Austin 3:16, and because those are my people. Wrestling fans are my people. And I wish wrestling was as popular, or at least as much of a social talking point as professional sports. Because this is my first year that I'm playing fantasy football. And I'm not playing fantasy football because I think I'm going to enjoy it. I'm playing fantasy football in hopes of connecting with some of these Midwestern dudes. I cannot tell you how many times I've had a dude come up, because that's all the guys talk about in Michigan. I live in Michigan. Of course, my 30 listeners know that. And I have a few Michigan State Spartan hoodies. It's where I went. And God, it's like a magnet for guys to be like, "Oh, he must be a sports fan." So they'll come up to me like they did this past Friday. They were like, "So, State's got Western tonight. What are you thinking about the game?" And I'm like, I think State's going to win, man. He's like, "Yeah, of course, but are they going to cover the spread? Jamal Frankfurt is out, and it's a big concern for the secondary because Western, if there's one thing that I know about the Western, is that Damien's step back out of the pockets gets catching a lot of eyeballs. They're secondary." And I'm like, that's a good point. That's a really good point. But I still think, I think State will cover the spread. He's like, "You think? Man, that's a pretty bold prediction. You must really be got a hardcore Spartan." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm a hardcore Spartan." Let me tell you something. If you and I have ever had a conversation about sports, try to think back. And I did not add one single shred of value to that conversation. I've gotten so good at like the sports conversation rope-a-dope that you'll leave that conversation and be like, yeah, I enjoyed having that sports conversation with that guy. He sure knows what he's talking about. Oh, here's another thing. If we're having a sports conversation, there is a 100% chance I'm going to bring it within my wheelhouse and somehow pivot and be like, yeah, I mean, but it won't be like the trouble with the snap, remember? And then they'll be, oh man, trouble with the snap. It's like the one play I remember from Michigan State, football, sports, and because that was awesome. Or if it's about anything else, I actually have a decent amount of like 90s sports knowledge because as a kid, I loved it. I'll bust out a Yarmir Yager reference and you'll be like, oh yeah. Or I'll be like, yeah, but he was no Bobby Bonilla. I'll be like, yeah, he's good at hitting home runs, but he didn't have a batting stance like Mickey Tettleton. And I'll be like, oh, Mickey Tettleton, what a pull. And I'll be like, you want sports? You want sports info? Come to the king, baby. Come to the king. So this year, it's funny, my stepdad played in a league with like my best buddies for probably 15 years. And every single year I'm like, yeah, I'll take over the team this year. I'll take over this team this year. Because the truth is, I want to be able to have those conversations with guys. It's just it kind of scratches and claws at my manhood that I cannot carry a conversation about sports with really anybody. But I want to be like, yeah, I want to be like included a little bit. I feel like playing fantasy football, I'll at least know more of the players. Like, sure, I watch the Detroit Lions every Sunday, or, now they play almost 7 days a week, depending on what network. Oh, and that's another nightmare. God, is it on Fox? Is it on CBS? Is it on DraftKings streaming, which is a thing now? Is it going to be on the ESPN Plus app? It's like such a headache to try and figure out where to watch everything now, Slug. So I play fantasy football because I want to talk to people. And I think maybe if I'm into it, maybe like by proxy, maybe I'll be like checking my score, showing my team, and then like I'll have my kid and I'll be like, yeah, I had this like fantasy football team and I'm going to put in Jared Goff, whatever. And then I'll be like, oh, I got, Clifford Franklin. He's my wide receiver. He's really helping my team this year. And maybe my kid will get some residual love for sports. I think a big part of it too, for me was video games growing up. Like I learned all the players and who was good from video games and baseball cards. We played Matt, it was before Madden. It was Tech Mobile. Yeah, it's Tech Mobile. Is that the thing? Yeah. And, speaking of my buddies, speaking of my friends, you guys are my friends. We have this group chat with all of us dads in there, and my one buddy put in there, he's like, have you guys watched Sing 1 and Sing 2? And then another of my buddies popped in. He's like, yeah, Sing's pretty cool. My daughter likes watching Sing, and she was big on Trolls as well. And it occurred to me, I'm like, oh man, not Trolls. Because I have this direct line to crying uncontrollably when I hear the songs from like the Pixar DreamWorks movies that my kid watched when he was like 2 and 3. He would watch those movies on repeat. There was like Trolls, Moana, and Frozen. And so we're having this conversation. I'm like, yeah, if I hear that from Trolls, the end of the movie Trolls, it's like the climax of the movie. And then everything goes dark, and then Justin Timberlake, who voices one of the trolls, comes in with this song. And here, I'll try. I'll see if I can trudge out some tears right now. But it just starts with you don't need to hear me try to sing it. Is it this? Nope. 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 Yeah, I hear that, and the tears immediately start. I'm such a pussy. Just this Timberlake. You with the sad eyes. Don't be discouraged. Oh, I realize it's hard to take courage. Fuck. I hear that. And yeah, it's like a direct line. I don't think people feel nostalgia the way I do. I hear that, or I hear some of the Moana songs, or I hear Into the Unknown, and like I got goosebumps, man. I have such a soft spot for like memories of my kid. And it's like just saying the words, it has to pass through some sort of floodgate that's like right here, right behind my eyes. And I hear that, you with the sad eyes. And I have just this clear vision of that being on the TV screen and like looking over at my kid when he's 1.5, 2 years old. And not a lot of things can hold his attention, but for whatever reason, those movies, small handful of movies, like held his attention. He would like watch it. And I remember with Frozen, before he was even having like back and forth dialogue with people, he knew the words to the songs. He would just come into the room, into the unknown. I'm so sorry I tried to sing for you. Into the unknown. Ooh, I think that sounded good. I think that actually sounded pretty good. But to be honest, I have these feelings, but it was a wise man that told me, facts don't care about your feelings. Okay. That guy, those guys who go like debate at colleges and stuff, sure, they're like easy targets. It's, it's like Jake Paul wanting to fight these boxers that are 75 years old. And he's like, oh, duh, I hear no bell. I beat Mike Tyson. So they're going in really easy targets. But I watched this video. It just came up in my feed of that Ben Shapiro guy. And he's on stage. There's like this panel where they're debating different political topics. And he's on stage. And there was like maybe 4 or 5 other people. And 3 of them were black people. And Ben Shapiro, right or wrong, love him or hate him, that guy has some cojones. Because he'll just sit there looking at black people and be like, well, he'll say, why don't you tell me the reason why 87% of African-American children grow up without a father? Why don't you tell me why 67% of black men are incarcerated? And facts don't care about your feelings, okay? Wake up, people. It's just like, oh my God. You have to have something wrong with you to just not give a shit like that. Like, what are you pushing for? To be right? If I spend more than 3 minutes of my time trying to be right and put together facts to win arguments, I am immediately miserable. I have like the tiniest little dust up with people, and I just ruminate and I ruminate. And it's like, the more I try to be right and win arguments, the more miserable I get. It goes back to that like head versus your heart thing. It's like, do you want to be right or do you want to have some peace in your life? And then God, Charlie Kirk, that big-headed buffoon, there was a video where it was kind of one of those stupid gotcha videos, but he holds up a picture of a fetus. He goes, Charlie, do you really think this is a human being? Charlie's like, without a shadow of a doubt, in my mind, yes. And the guy's like, you think this is a human being? He goes, yes, absolutely. John Paul 429 says the birth of the death is the death of the fetus. And the guy was like, well, this is a picture of a dolphin fetus. And it's like, oh, maybe not. Maybe it's not a human being, or maybe it is. Who cares? But yeah, those guys, and then your Jordan Petersons. Oh man, Jordan Peterson. I came across this video, and maybe I'll link it, but probably not. I'll probably forget. But with YouTube and Spotify and all these apps, you basically get to dictate how your thoughts go throughout the day. For me, it's very important when I first wake up in the morning, rather than hopping on a phone and scrolling or putting on the TV, I need to sit 15 to 20 minutes, either silence, so I can just kind of sit there and meditate, or if I don't feel like doing that, I'll pop in some headphones, find some kind of video where it's kind of recalibrating me. For a while, I'll admit it, I got into those Joel Osteen videos where he's doing a sermon. They're like 30 minutes, and a lot of times he's saying some really good stuff. So shoot me, you can be a billionaire mega church douche, but still carry a good message, right? You can be David Goggins ultra runner, but, not the best dad. What if it came out, and this isn't my joke, I heard it somewhere else, so forgive me. What if it came out that who invented the light bulb? Damn it. It's not Einstein. It was Eisenhower. Who invented the light bulb? Einstein. Edison. If it came out that Edison had like a basement bunker full of slaves, and you found that out, would you never turn on a light again? I think it's a Jim Norton joke. And it, it's a decent joke. Can you separate? Can you hold pity or disdain or anger at somebody, but also appreciate what they have to offer? Cosby was a big one. We won't touch that. We would have to dose it first before we touched it. What was I talking about? I don't know. But what I do know is that if you're in, this is a good one for guys. This is a really good way to diffuse an argument with your significant other. So listen up, fellas. You come to this channel because you want answers and you want me to help you with your relationship, and I have the answers. And if things are getting heated, if there's a big disagreement, you wait for her to state her piece, and then you hit her with this. It is so cute that you think that. They love that you call them cute. Anytime you can call your wife or girlfriend or fiance cute, it diffuses the argument completely. So me and Emily it wasn't even a dust up. It was such a silly, we always argue, we always have this like friendly banter about making the bed. Too many pillows is my take. And the sheet, she puts it upside down. And I guess if you actually look into it, she's right. But I always did it right side up, where the pattern, there's like the one side where the pattern is more bold, and then of course the undercarriage. And I always did it the other way. So she does it upside down so that when you flip and pull back, the bold side's up. So whenever we get into little dust ups, I go, babe, it is so cute that you think that. And she just loves it. She is so, her heart just skips a beat and, you know, she grins her teeth out of joy. You know, she's got the TMJ from gritting so hard. Is it grint or grit? I learned something new. So watching Dexter, he's a blood spatter expert. And I'll bet that you thought that would have been called a blood splatter expert. Well, you'd be wrong because blood spatter is correct. I'm going to take a swig. Let's take a breath. Oh, that was a bigger swigger. Easy. Sorry, big swig. Big swig. Yeah, I'm sorry if you were like hanging on the edge of your tits when I was talking about the Eisenhower stuff, like the head and the heart. That's what I was talking about. Okay, the head says one thing, the heart says another thing. And you know, to get serious for a minute, that analogy, it really applies. That's what I was going to say. The head and the heart thing. I think we need both, of course. I think the head is kind of the conservative and the heart is kind of the liberal. A little. That's at least how it used to be, but it's kind of going all wacky-doo because the heart, it's like we need to make progress. So we need both. That's what I think a lot of these people who like put their stake in the ground and say, I'm this or I'm that. I think that's what a lot of is lost in your opinions. And that's like, well, that's what makes this country. There's always the one side that kind of wants to keep things the way they are. And then there's the other side that's like, no, frick what they used to be like. Let's advance forward. And then you kind of have this tug and pull and the pendulum swings, of course. And I'm not saying anything new, but you need, you need a police officer to screw up. And of course, there's bad eggs in every bunch. You need the police officer to screw up royally. And I'm not diminishing how bad some police officers will screw up. You need that to then have this mega push, and maybe it was misdirected, but the defund the police thing. You got one side, no, they're screwing things up. We don't need so much law enforcement. And the other side was like, yeah, we kind of do. And then some cities are like, no, we're gonna remove it. And then you see how some places end up when they enforce that. So then they're like, okay, maybe that was pushing the ball a little too forward. Let's pull it back a little bit. I knew this gal who lived in Seattle, one of the cities that went like full on defund the police. And we were in a coding boot camp together. And she, like, one time, like, ordering an Amazon package came up. And she was like, yeah, you can't really do that around here because it'll just immediately get stolen. And it's like, okay, well, that's not good. But then on the other hand, if you are just like ruling with an iron fist and, you know, some innocent traffic violation goes awry and, you know, person's like well within their rights to say no or whatever, and the cop's like, radio for backup. We need 6 cop cars here and we're gonna, you know, pew, 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 pew. I don't know. You don't come here for politics. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. But my point is, when this guy told me that the longest trip I was going to take was from my head to my heart, what I did not realize is that I would make that trip from my head to my heart, but then I would oscillate right back to my head, back down to my heart, back up to my head. Now, what does that exactly mean? And I only have my own experience to draw from. But I think what that means is kind of like the example I gave before. It's like, do I want to sit here and argue and argue and argue and and exhaust all of my mental power into being right? Or do I need to know when to let it go so I can get back to having some peace? And the peace, of course, resides in the heart. And for me, when traveling from my head to my heart, there are certain things that make it a little more difficult. I call them magnets. And it's like I have these three big magnets in my head that make it a little bit harder for me to travel down to my heart. And those magnets, number one, is resentment or anything involving the whole being right thing, right? The resentment I can ruminate on and swirl it around, and every single time I tell myself the story of why I resent this person, I make myself a little bit more innocent and I make the other person a little bit more guilty, and around we go. The other magnet in my head is fear. It's fear. It's like the example I gave, like doing this podcast. It's like 1,000 different forms of fear. And fear can manifest in procrastination. Fear can manifest in thoughts of like, well, it's not going to be that good. It's embarrassing to put out content that, is not really cranking in the numbers, certainly not monetizable. And fear can take the... But when I travel down and I surpass fear, a lot of times things that combat fear, simply taking action. I can complicate the hell out of this. I can talk myself out of it, just sitting down for an hour, spilling my thoughts. I can talk myself out of it real easily. I can be like, well, what if I stutter? What if I say some shit that don't make sense? What if the point that I'm trying to make doesn't get communicated correctly? And then the other one, it's kind of resentment and fear rolled into one. It's just selfishness in my head. My head says, what can I get out of it? Oh, I got to go to Thanksgiving dinner. Well, that will be good for me because I can eat a lot of food. I can eat until I'm in pain, Oh, I get to go to Thanksgiving dinner. Well, but my heart says, what can I give? What value can I add? My head is take, take, take. My heart is give, give, give. And I go from one to the other, and I travel down to my heart, and I send my mom a text message, and I say, hey, can we bring anything for Thanksgiving dinner? And then she says, well, yeah, actually, we need a cheesecake. And then I go right back up to my head, and I say, damn it, why did I ask what I could bring? Or, I find out that I got a friend that's moving, and my head says I'll just pretend like I don't know, or I'll pretend like I'm busy, or I'll whatever. And then for a brief moment, I travel down to my heart and I say, well, oh, down here, this is the right thing to do. Hey, man, you're moving. What kind of value can I add? Can I, at the very least, bring you guys some coffees? Can I help carry some big stuff? And then my friend texts me back, yeah, cool. We could use an extra set of hands for a couple hours. And then I go right back up to my head and I say, damn it. That's 2 hours of my Saturday I'll never get back. What am I getting from this? A slice of pizza? I'm not even eating pizza right now. I'm in shreddy mode. But I guess by lifting a dresser, that'll burn off enough calories to squeeze in a slice of hot and ready. I'll tell you what, these triceps are hot and ready for action. I'm not going to brag, but I ripped 16 wide grip pull-ups in a row yesterday. Not bragging, though I am bragging. 16 wide grip shits. And then I went on to do over 100 total. I do wide grip and then I do close grip. That shit hits the forearms. I have more definition in my forearms than I ever had right now. And I'll catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror and be like, oh my God, hello, forearms. Hello, jars that need to be opened. I can open you. Because usually in my household, it's my wife that's doing the jar opening. No. So, no, seriously, I can open a jar. I can. But you know what I'm saying about the head and the heart thing? That's why when people, big prominent figures contradict themselves, I'm not always one to point it out or be like, oh, well, on this podcast, you said that it's cruel to let in all these people from all these different countries. But now you say that we need to remove them because they're not here legally. Like, what's that about? It's like, well, are you being a hypocrite or are you operating from two different places at two different times? Like, I can really relate to that. I really can. Sometimes I will sit and be like, with that exact issue, I don't have the strongest, I don't care. I do care, but it's like, I try to focus much more on my own house. Like Dave Ramsey has that good quote, focus more on your house than what's going on in the White House. It's like, yeah, Dave. Hell yeah, Dave. You helped me get a handle on money, man. You the man. And speaking of money, I hate to say it, but if you're downloading those apps that allow you to get your paycheck 3 days early, those apps should come with a disclaimer that's like, this isn't supposed to be forever. Like if you're in a bad way and you really need that paycheck 3 days early, okay, but this app's going to delete itself in a month because you got to get that shit under control. That is, if you have to download one of those apps, my heart's with you, but man, those are not there to help you. Those are there to keep you stuck. You should not have to rely. There should not be that much month at the end of the money, if you know what I'm saying. I get nothing out of saying this, but I was not great at managing money for a long, long time. I cut it so close for so long, really because I wasn't making any money, but somehow I would find it to pay rent and buy food. And I could have really used one of those Chime apps, but it wasn't until, like, if your money situation is a mess, do the Dave Ramsey thing. And I know a lot of like the scholars and economics professors will say, well, yeah, he says invest in growth stock mutual funds, but really if you look at the S&P, the tech is the best to get in and he's anti-crypto, but look what happened to me. Crypto. Don't listen to any of that. Just follow those 7 baby steps. And I promise you, your financial life will turn around. And what it's given me is I'm not swimming in the dough by any means. What my wife and I do is we live far below our means. We use this app called Every Dollar, which is free to log every single expense, and we log every single dollar that we make. And we do that over and over and over again. And by doing that, we've been able to get to baby steps 5, 6, and 7, which is pay off the house early, save for college, invest in your retirement. And the first 3, okay, now I'm getting off track. But here's the point that I made, is we had some car issues come up. And like I said, we're not exactly swimming in dough, but without credit cards, we managed to take a $4,500 landscaping job to our backyard. Looks great. A like $1,000 car issue with the alternator. Some medical bills that came up. And they didn't put us in a state of panic. We said, okay, grab a little bit from this emergency fund that we built up. And here are the baby steps. Like if you're in a really bad place financially, number one, do everything you can to save $1,000. Sell things. Live off rice and beans for a month and eggs. They're not that expensive anymore, which is cool. I eat a lot of eggs. Do everything you can to put $1,000 in your savings account. There's a crazy percentage of people who don't even have that for small emergencies, small car issues, small medical bills. Number two, pay off all of your debt except the house. Here's where a lot of the calculator, actually, that's not what you want to do. You want to arrange your debts by the highest interest rate because of the savings. It's like, well, if we were using a calculator, you wouldn't be in debt in the first place. Yubbish, yubbish, yubbish. Gang signs out the window, yubbish, yubbish. Hoping all of them offend you, yubbish. You arrange all of your debts, smallest to lowest, and every dollar that you can squeeze out of that budget that we talked about, remember? Kind of like step one, get an app that's going to allow you to budget. And I don't mean your bank app. I don't mean you have Bank of America and you budget because you know that your checking doesn't drip below zero. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting an app like Every Dollar, which is free. And again, I have no affiliation. I'm just very passionate about this stuff because I know what it's like to go from financial insecurity every single day to where, like, if I get injured, I hope it's not bad because I can't afford a medical bill, to, okay, we had like $5,000 of unexpected expenses come up this month, but it didn't put us in the black, or didn't put us in the red. Like, we're good. And it feels really good. So arrange your debts, smallest to lowest, whether it's credit cards, student loans, car payments, personal loans, arrange them smallest to lowest, attack the smallest one, make the minimum payments on all of them, but attack that smallest one with everything you got until it's gone, and then move on to the next smallest, and then could take 2 years, could take 5 years. But the whole thing is live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else. And super grateful that. And then the third step is build up your $1,000 emergency fund into a savings that's 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So that's where, when you get hit hard with a medical bill or with a new car, you pull from. So, transmission that goes out isn't going to make you carless. You know what I mean? And then 4, 5, and 6, those are pay off the house early, invest. And I know zero about investments. I just got a guy who seems to be in line with the Ramsey principles who manages our finances. And some people know way more about me, and they're like, hey, did you get into this, Mark Cuban's got this new company that's going way up. I got there. I pulled a little bit out of the Elon stuff, got it over here to Bezos number one. I heard this, the 3 wealthiest people, Bezos is back to number 1, and then Elon, and then I don't know the third guy, but Bernie Sanders, according to good old Bernie Sanders, we're going to get free healthcare, and the oligarchy is, we need to save the Gaza Palestinian children. That was actually pretty good. The 3 wealthiest people in America, combined wealth equals more than the bottom 50% of America. And look, I am all about capitalism. Get out there and make that money. But wouldn't it be cool if this were the case? Like, once you hit a certain amount of money, $1 billion, some amount of money that you couldn't spend in the rest of your lifetime. Fuck that. Some amount of money that your grandkids couldn't spend in their lifetime. You hit that, and then you get to choose. You could pick 10 causes. 10 causes. Health, education. Fuck it, you could pick military. You pick 10 causes to where once you hit that amount, hey, I'll give you $10 billion. You can have 10 billion of your own dollars, but once you hit 10 billion, all of that money goes to causes of your choice. So you're still pulling in crazy money, but you're helping inner cities. And you could be as blue could be, and all of your green money can go to blue causes. Who cares? Or you could be as red as the sea is, full of trash, twice the size of Texas, and all of your money goes to red things. Well, that's pretty cool. All of your money. And maybe one of your 10 is maybe it's 10 billion goes to paying off the national debt. And you could feel good about helping, make a dent in this debt where apparently the interest alone is $1.3 trillion. And it just gets to numbers that I can't even fathom $1 billion. But then 1,000 of those is 1 trillion, and I couldn't fathom that either. But yeah, the head to the heart thing. My head, when waiting in line at a grocery store, says, this is bullshit. Why can't they go faster? Why don't they have more self-checkout lanes? Why don't I put in a podcast so I can make it through this idle time? Why don't I pull out my phone and play another game of Candy Crush? Whereas my heart says, it's okay. It is okay to just be. I don't need to be constantly entertained with brain candy. And that's what it is. This phone that I'm holding in my hand, it's brain candy. That's all it is. It's brain candy. I was depressed and I eat only ribeye steak and water. Sparkling water if I'm lucky, but I don't cheat on my diet, not even a little bit. And I'm not a nutritionist. That sounded exactly like Jordan Peterson. I'm not a nutritionist. Oh, you betcha. It makes a big bloody difference whether you're in Canada, an authoritarian society, and you come to America and it's like, what's the difference? Canada is going downhill. It was a... Okay, I'm going to have to listen to that back. I don't like listening back, but that to me sounds exactly like Jordan Peterson. Does it not? Not even a little bit. Or is it too Kermit? I don't know. I'll work on that one. Oh, you betcha. You're taking a risk by insulting me, and I'm sitting here, I'm doing your interview. Why do you get to decide? You don't get to tell me what I am about me. Spiritually, I'm connected to God. You bloody betcha I'm connected to God. And your tyrannical fascism. There was an episode of Home Improvement where Randy gets really into journalism, and as part of his school projects, he interviews like the CEO of Binford, and Tim is like, "Oh, this is cute." It's that whole like, "It's so cute that you think that." And so don't actually say that to your wife. She will probably murder you in your sleep. So Randy gets an interview with the Bidford CEO, and he's actually grilling him on questions. He's like, what's up with the pollution? It sounds like you're buying credits from other companies just so you can skirt below the line. And the guy's like, well, why is that unethical? La, 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 la. And then later, Tim is just ripping into Randy. He's like, why are you trying to take Binford down? And then Randy's like, who are you to tell me what I can and can't write? You're acting like some tyrannical fascist. And he storms away. And Tim, he doesn't get in the last word, but he turns to his wife, Jill, and he goes, did he just call me a dinosaur? That's so fucking funny. Oh, man. Go watch Home Improvement. I actually know that guy, but I can't say from where. Tim Allen, I mean. But that is just about it. I do want to end on one story of just the total destruction that my life used to look like back when I was drinking. I hadn't thought of this. I hadn't thought of this in like 10 years, but I wanted to share it here. So back junior year of college, we lived in an apartment and there was 2 guys per room. And me and my cousin Joey, we lived in a bedroom together, and we had these lofts that my Uncle John built. And they're probably like 6 or 7 feet off the ground. And that's where our bed was, and then our desks were underneath. Well, I went to bed one time. I was near blackout. No, I wasn't a blackout. I was blackout drunk, and I passed out in the bed in the loft. And then I woke up sometime in the morning, no longer in that bed, on the ground. And my mouth was filled with blood. I rolled over and I went, oh, and just blood poured out of my mouth. And I went into the mirror. I looked at myself in the mirror, and my face was all swollen. And I kind of slowly started to piece it together that I had rolled out of the bed and fallen onto the ground, smashed my face on the ground. And that was not enough to indicate to me to go to the doctor or the hospital or to even slow down my drinking. In fact, I think I went to work the next day, could barely move my jaw. I had to switch my role that night because I couldn't talk to people. My jaw, so I survived a week or 2 off of just water and soup. And then about 2 months later, I got really, really sick, like a flu, bad flu. And so I did go to the doctor, and they took a look at me, like, yeah, you got the flu. Here's this, here's that, whatever. Z-Pack. And they said, is there anything else you want us to check out while you're here? And I said, yeah, a couple months ago, I just had this like really bad pain in my jaw. And I was wondering, like, can we check that out? And they're like, yeah. So they did an x-ray. And then the doctor comes back holding the x-ray, eyes wide, like looking at me, looking at the x-ray, kind of shaking his head. And I go, what? And he goes, what did you say happened to your jaw? I said, well, I just like woke up, and it was like, I didn't tell him I got blackout drunk and fell from 7 feet onto the ground, whatever. I just said, oh, I just woke up and it was painful. He goes, you have a fractured jaw. And he showed me the x-ray, and there was like a clear line where there was just no jaw. So like on my right side, and I can still kind of feel it, on my right side, when I opened my mouth, it was only, opening like maybe an inch of my jaw. And then on my left side, it was opening more jaw than it usually does because it was fractured. And I just like that. I think the moral of that story was just like how destructive and powerless I was over drinking. Like that didn't even slow me down. Like I'm pretty sure I was right back to drinking the next day. And yeah, and I guess I'm just grateful that I don't have to live like that anymore and I get to travel out of my head and into my heart.